My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and it's Chocolate Week.
Ooh, la chocolat.
It's, not
chocolat.
Not a bad film.
De chocolat.
Not a bad... Did anyone see... Did you see the film Chocolat?
Yeah, and it's now a Depp film, isn't it? Didn't it have Dunny Depp in it?
Probably. I can't...
That's his new name because he's full of shit.
Dunny Depp, yep. Okay, so... Chocolate Week. Look, Chocolate Week's always an interesting concept. Whenever you see, especially when they even as not even a whole week, but when you're just working with chocolate.
Look, Chocolate Week is a lot like communism. Great in theory.
Practice. It's
completely different and dependent on
the workers.
The workers and the conditions.
Completely dependent on the workers. Look, last week Kristie talked about the means of production and talked about that. And the hyper-capitalist nature of our society. And this week, we tried the communism of the baking world, which is chocolate.
Look, I feel like our podcast will really be the catalyst for the downfall of capitalism.
The social revolution will come, and it will be podcasted. So, look, the difficulty with Chocolate Week, and we've talked about this many times, and many bakers when they've come on the podcast have talked about it, is that the Pavilion is not what we call a temperate climb.
Well, no, bloody the shed isn't. The bloody tent isn't. Nothing is.
The shed at least usually has a nice cross breeze.
Yeah, but then there's usually rain or some other shit going on. Like, it's just too dependent. Like, you basically... Like, chocolate is the princess of foods, isn't it? It really relies on specific temperatures. If there's a pea in its mattress, it's just going to chuckle wobbly. It's
the whole week is sort of what you'd refer to as the temper trap. Because it's all about temperature or tempering. That's the whole week. Yep. If you get a good temper on your chocolate, it works great. But also, especially when we talk about the technical, that was purely temperature based.
But I am now sure that this week was set by a sadist, because not only did you have to worry about the chocolate, you throw in some ice cream.
John kind of referred to that anyway. But let's sort of get into the idea now. We open with, look, I'm going to say it straight up. Alan is ahead of his time. The idea of chocolate and charcuterie.
Look, it's going to happen.
Now, I am, for one, here for different salamis and things like that dipped in forms of chocolate.
Really?
I'm on board. I'm here for it.
I'm a little cautious of that. Look, I get it if you want to do it as a fondue set. Not a problem.
Well, look, in your mind, he only used two forms of chocolate and white chocolate. So, in your mind... Now, let's get this debate started now. So, we're going to start this debate now because it's going to roll on.
Yeah.
What is or is not chocolate?
Look, I think it's anything that has a cocoa bean in it.
Now...
we can kind of just...
Now, the Great Canadian Baking Show Instagram put up their video they always put up of baking hot takes. Zoya included that she doesn't consider that white chocolate's really chocolate. Which she then proceeded to use in the episode, which I thought was great.
Look, she might, have strong opinions, but she's not above, exploring
lowering herself for the benefit of winning.
Yeah.
Also, she also did something in this challenge, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, obviously. But ruby chocolate. Now,
ruby.
No, because I've had ruby chocolate. We've talked about this on other podcasts before.
It's too fruity.
Really dislike ruby chocolate.
Even the colour, I want it to be a prettier pink. It's a very 90s pink. It's that kind of dusky pink. Looks great on me as a lipstick.
Yeah, looks okay on the walls of an old relative's house. But
if you got potpourri in that colour, you'd be happy.
Oh, you'd love it.
Yeah, a few potpourri sachets. Oh,
for Botanical Week, it would have been a joy.
There we go.
But look, I am a fan of white chocolate.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely anti-ruby chocolate.
Yeah, and look, I'm trying to be positive, I'm just trying to embrace all the chocolates, but it's a bit hard, and it's a newcomer, and maybe, who knows, in 100 years' time...
I'll get the balance right.
Our descendants will find a way to justify it.
It's just weirdly sickly. So... Let's talk about, before we even get anywhere near what the signature was, there's two things I want to discuss. First of all, we'll go to Zoya again, who said that she believes that chocolate can smell fear. accurate.
Yeah.
Like, chocolate cares not. One of the things we were sort of talking about while we were watching is of all of the Bake Off weeks, Chocolate Week might be the most up in the air because chocolate cares not for what you do.
No.
Chocolate will make up its own rule.
Absolutely. It is its own beast, you know. It's got like the temperament of horses because each chocolate is different. You know, you might have some friendlier chocolates. You might have some meaner chocolates. You might have a chocolate you just caught on a bad day.
Yep. And if you catch it on a bad day, it's like, you know, you need it to, for example, if you need petals to fall down like Zoya did at the end and they didn't, catch it on a bad day.
Oh, it's going to go, fuck you.
Exactly.
I won't petal.
I
won't bloom. Yeah. I'm not going to bloom on cue.
Yeah, there's no blooming happening here whatsoever. Yeah. What do you think I am, gelatin? So, and secondly, we always talk about the amazing level of the judges and the hosts and their outfits. And look, Anne, again, her outfit was amazing. And we'll talk about the reveal when we get to it. But can I just say this week, Chi and Lauren, they just crushed this week.
When we get... Okay, I'm going to just skip ahead because I bloody can.
Yes.
Lauren coordinated her outfit with her showstopper.
She did. It was amazing. It was... Look, not enough berets.
I don't... No.
I'm a bandit for a beret.
Look, I just feel like she set herself up for success by coordinating for her showstopper. Like she's like it was in the zone. I think that, you know. And
as you know, when it comes to me and dungarees, you know, I'm a bandit.
Yeah.
So like Cheese were right. They were perfect.
Gorge.
They were absolutely amazing. Now, the last thing before we actually get into what happened is...
But that said, Rosie's like glasses. I bloody love them.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now matters arising from the previous podcast.
Yes.
So we had a message on Instagram.
Yes.
From Lisa Stewart.
The old IG, as I find out from the new generation, whatever the fuck they are.
They call it the old IG.
No one uses it, apparently.
No, they don't.
Only older people use Instagram. I'm like, but I'm Facebook generation.
Well, as we know, as we know now that you know bargain bin Iron Man has bought Twitter. Mm-hmm. You know, social medias are crumbling around us. So like, you know, the refuges of where are we going next? Who the hell knows?
I know.
But talking about this, so Lisa messaged us she put up a post where she had done the bake along. And she did Shabaka. Okay. Now, the line I want to read you here is from here, where she's like, after listening to the Washing Up podcast today, they're ruined for me, and I was very careful of how I took photos of them. If you know, you know. Thanks a lot, Chris and Kristie. To which I did say, did we ruin or enhance them? And her follow-up was, how many people have written to say it never occurred to them? And here's the kicker, I'm a labour and delivery nurse. You would have thought I noticed.
Look, you know, her life is vulvas, so I assume that, you know, it's just... It's like if I don't know if
life is vulva.
Yeah, if your life is vulvas there, you're either, you know, staring at them, putting your fingers inside them to see how far dilated people are, inserting wafers. Trust me, there's a lot of vulva action when you're in that kind of field. That it would just be like the furniture, you know, like if you had like say 20 cats at home. And another cat, like a stray, just wandered in, you probably wouldn't notice it. It's just another fucking cat.
I would now love to think that there's a website out there for delivery nurses called My Life is Vulvas. Because if you remember one of these sites back
in Lisa's new autobiography.
Well, back in the days of the earlier internet, there was a great website called My Life is Average, which I used to love, which was like things like, I drove into the car park today, two of my cars were parked, two of the same model of my car were parked, there was a gap, I parked in the middle of them, so there were three of us in a row. My life is average. And all of those like little moments of joy in the day. And I'd like to think there's now one of those for My Life is Vulvas. So let's get into the episode finally.
Yep.
So the signature, you had 2 hours and 15 minutes to make 8 chocolate-centric ice cream sandwiches. Mm-hmm. You needed homemade ice cream, and that was what was said, between 2 soft cookies. Any flavour... but chocolate needs to be the focus.
Yeah.
Now, when they announced this, there was a bit of a panicked look between the two of us.
Yeah. I saw no signs of a blast chiller.
Yeah. Now, we have, in the past, done... To our own detriment, it must be said, have covered a lot of MasterChef Australia.
Yes, we have.
Now, too much for anyone's benefit.
Yeah.
But... one of the things that is prominent in MasterChef Australia, among many, 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 many things, is ice cream.
Yes.
Now, you need a blast chiller.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Look, we've covered a lot of this. 2 hours to whack out an ice cream is ambitious, particularly in conditions such as the shed. I mean, at least in MasterChef, they still had, hot studio lights and stuff, but there seemed to have been a little bit more equipment available.
They've got to share the freezers as well.
Yeah.
And the doors are opening and closing.
Yeah.
And you're also on not mains power for a structure, it's a temporary structure.
Yeah.
So that's going to create power issues there. It's already hot. It's doable, but it's really hard to make it absolutely work, and a blast chiller would probably have rescued that.
Yeah. That said, though, Kyla did make a good point in the judgment when she said, you have to make a call about what method you're going to use to create this ice cream. Now, as we saw, John went and created a semi-Freddo, which is probably a really good call, as we saw by his result. The frozen yogurt
didn't work,
but was that the cold, or was it that there wasn't enough gelatin or something just didn't
the frozen yogurt wouldn't have used gelatin, though. That's the thing. It should have. I
don't know how to make yogurt.
The frozen yogurt probably should have, because it doesn't need to freeze as solidly. Zoya probably should have. That should have worked. So that's what I mean. Like the temperature, because the doors are being opened and closed. And at one point, there was a conversation when they were standing at the freezer going, "We need to close these doors."
Yeah.
Because people were opening and checking and closing and opening and checking and closing.
Yeah.
And so they weren't setting to that temperature as well. Look, I think the description and the use of the word ice cream in the definition was sort of, it led them down a path where you needed to be able to think outside of that and go, well, I'm not going to do an ice cream because X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of processing that you need to do, and you've got to really think around the problem, whereas you're probably just going, well, what's the easiest ice cream I can make to do it?
Yeah. And look, I did see ice cream churners, but I know from MasterChef you have to put your, what's it called, in, the...
Yeah.
Can't think of it, but you have to put the mixture in.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, it has to be cool already, otherwise it just
look, there was a great line that I absolutely loved as well, when John turned around and gone, it's not ice cream unless you hand whip your cream. And then someone said something, and he goes, I'm not you, I don't need an ice cream churner. And all I could think of was in the corner.
Yeah.
Some poor representative of cuisine art was just sobbing gently to themselves, going, but we've got a deal.
Be kind to the sponsors, John.
John, the sponsors are paying for it. You need a churner.
We want another series,
What made it really funny was the John's ice cream semi-Freddo set.
Yeah. It looks fucking brilliant.
So he made the right call.
But again, I don't think it's ice cream churners or anything. I think it's just the lack of a blast chiller, which might have made the difference.
And I mean, look, there were other issues as well. So let's start with.
But let's not. Yeah.
So let's start with the other issues as well. So let's start with Rosie,
who
decided that she was going to use molasses.
Yeah.
And
which pig farmers used to make sure that troughs didn't freeze.
And also the idea of whiskey molasses ice cream. So an alcohol.
Yeah.
And molasses. So Rosie didn't give herself the best chance.
No, and I think Anne was right in asking, and you have to clarify, because you never know with fucking boomers, if her mum served her whiskey as well as the molasses.
You always have to ask the question.
Because you just don't know.
Now Rosie was going...
It's quite possible.
Now Rosie
after school treats, you have your molasses and your whiskey chaser.
Well, Rosie, because
all the kids done pronto.
Yeah, because Rosie said bread and molasses was her treat. It was like I would have rather the whiskey.
Because we don't have molasses in Australia. We have golden syrup.
Yeah, we didn't do. Well, there is molasses. You can find it, but it's not common.
Yeah.
So chocolate bourbon biscuits, whiskey molasses ice cream, and the gold chocolate ganache on top of that too. Then we cut over to John, and again, now John, as I said, mentioned that it wasn't ice cream unless you'd hand whip the cream. Again, the representative from Cuisine Art in the corner is yelling out, "Bullshit, John!"
And John, if it's ice cream, I don't give a fuck how it's been made as long as it's good.
Yeah, I'm not.
It could be like stampeded by rhinos. If it comes out as ice cream, I'm happy.
If you made an ice cream that had been stampeded by rhinos, you know how much money you could sell that shit for?
I know, and then I'd donate half of it to rhino conservation, because that's just the kind of person I am.
It's like elephant shit coffee.
They don't do that. It's some bloody marsupial, like possum thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's also been elephant ones. So everyone's sold some variety of that, and then they charge like ridiculous amounts of money for it.
What if we just feed caffeine to our cats and have them poop it out and sell that? Like, just... No, we don't want our cats to eat.
No, we really...
coffee beans.
I don't need them caffeinated. So
we'd put extra zoomies in your zoomies.
No, don't need that. So John made dark chocolate...
Zoomies on the ceiling. Oh, what a feeling.
So John made a dark chocolate...
Zoomies on the ceiling.
Dark chocolate semi-Freddo with a chocolate orange cookie, candied orange slices on top, which was his ode to Italy.
Oh, yes.
He said he's been to Italy 3 times now.
Oh, he's almost Italian himself.
It's all very Italian. This also led, at this point in time, there was a comment inside the pavilion of chocolate cookies are the best.
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Yes.
No.
What would you say?
Gingerbread.
No.
You can disagree with me? I like Anzac cookies too, to be honest with you. Actually, I can murder Anzac.
Anzac biscuits!
I know, but I would prefer with our overseas friends.
Fuck them. They don't... The English say biscuits, and it's English that we're using.
Well, to be fair, they're a colony too.
I know, but
they're they're a fellow member of the Commonwealth. We treat them quite badly at Commonwealth Games.
But obviously, where does the term cookie come from? Like, what language? Who's gone, I'm not calling them biscuits, I'm calling them cookies now. I mean, you're asking a whole lot of questions. And then they call something that's like a scone a biscuit. Like,
I don't understand that.
Who? Why? Like, I understand that there's revolutions and that the French were there and you're dealing with the Spanish as well, but really...
I mean, literally the definition, by the way, goes alternative name, biscuit. So... Apparently the Persians, by the way, in the 7th century came up with cookies/biscuits too. So
how did the Persians infiltrate America at that point? They don't even... Did the Persians have a fucking colony? Was it just ex-Babylonians popping along to build some ziggurats?
Devo brought the cookie. There we go, we've done it. The use of ziggurats mean that, and again, that's a reference that about 3 people will get.
Are gonna get,
and the rest of you are going, why the fuck are they talking about Devo?
Was it Gilgamesh? Did Gilgamesh swim across?
Well, the difference is
just got a bit too far down the Euphrates and ended up...
Some people are going...
Some in Ohio going,
some
cookies.
Some people at home are going, why are they talking about Devo? And a bunch of other people are going, who the fuck is Devo? Anyway, we'll come back to
the Gilgamesh references, though.
There's people right now just jumping up and down that we've mentioned Gilgamesh. Anyway, so cut to Kristie. So Kristie made chocolate bao. Mm-hmm. With fungi masala, ice cream, and a nutty rose crunch.
It's beautiful. I fucking love the idea of what is this, because it doesn't say like ice cream sandwich, right? There are 2 things you need: ice cream and then 2 bits to go around it to make it a sandwich. Like, you could technically whack a banana on either side.
Whack a banana.
But obviously you got to do a baked good, because it's a baking show.
But it's really interesting because they sort of talked about the idea between 2 soft cookies. Now, Kristie made bao. And as she said, there's rest of the world, chocolate and bread is a thing. We'll come to that in a moment. But I just want to say, whoever's naming the bakes, because it's not the bakers. Like, they don't name their own bakes. Guys, spoiler alert. We've known that for years. We've talked about that for seasons upon seasons upon seasons. Mm-hmm. The naming conventions of some of these bakes feels like they've read a bit of the profile, and they're just like using the same things over and over again, like family fusion. Like, we get it. We get it. Kristie's family is a blend from different cultures. You don't need to reference it in every bake for her, because you can just see what they ask her, and she's like, yeah, it certainly is. It's a family fusion. In your head, you hear her going, oh, for fuck's sake.
If that was us, right, it would just be so much whiteness. Like, all white.
As white as snow.
Now, all the UK colonies and convicts.
Yes, exactly. So, but the idea that she said, chocolate bao, she said, the idea of chocolate and bread is a common occurrence, and bready sort of desserts. They're very much... I mean, bread and butter pudding is a bready dessert anyway, but that idea of something cold and something with a bready texture is quite...
And, you know, when she made it, I'm like, this makes so much sense. So something that was invented in Sydney, or miscellaneous city, is called a mango pancake. And it's like a... usually served at yum cha, or what the States would call dim sum.
Well, they've got it over there, but not usually served at dim sum. You can buy it as a dessert on its own.
But it was still invented in Australia. So it's essentially this beautiful, I think it's a carnation milk-based pancake, usually dyed orange or yellow, and on the inside is a strip of frozen mango, and it's got to be frozen because that's what gives it good texture, and cream.
Apparently,
that's rolled up.
Apparently, Hong Kong.
Oh, bullshit.
Yeah, I will dispute that.
This is all coming down to pavlova, you know,
We stole pavlova from New Zealand,
and so Hong Kong's trying to steal
some
them.
mango pancakes. No.
No.
They're ours, damn it.
Yes,
we're claiming them, even if they're not. We're actually claiming them.
Yeah. They can have Russell Crowe.
They can have Russell Crowe instead.
Either New Zealand or Australia.
Hong Kong can have Russell Crowe. But what I really do want is the chocolate bar. So
yes.
Look at me bringing it back. I really want that chocolate bar. I was so here for that, and like,
oh, it's great. I like seeing innovation. I like to see, you know, like she said, she had to try, you know, different recipes to get the chocolate bow to work, and ta-da!
But I also really like to see. I also really like to see it when somebody fuses their family's cultures. No, moving on. So cheap.
I'm just imagining that fusing a family, like you just have these strange kind of Frankenstein monsters coming together of, you know, your drunk uncle with your crazy granny. Like,
here's what I see in my head when I do that. I go Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Oh, when
Station.
Oh God, okay.
When the two stations run together to form Big Station.
Oh God.
You know, Station.
All the families coming together to make Mecha Family.
Yeah, they go running together, they clash into each other, and then there's this big pile of goo that just becomes Giant Family.
Yeah, which is good when you have going Mecha Family feud.
Mecha Family.
It's good. You only really need the one person because you've got everyone's brains there, and you'll get the right answer.
Combined answers. Beautiful. You don't have to go... Well, it's good for Family Feud because, you know, you go down the line and you've got to work out what your family's thinking.
Exactly.
You know automatically. Great cheating. There you go. Fuse your family, guys. That's what we want to see. So, they made a mochi brownie with sesame truffle, chocolates, sesame, and ginger ice cream.
Oh.
Now...
Mochi.
Also shaped them like bears because it's chi, and cheese bakes are shaped like really cute things all the time.
So, chi, I want to know if on the flip side... if you've made it look like a bear's bottom.
That would have worked.
Because you can flip it over, right? Instead of the ears, they become little legs. You just have the crack down.
We've already seen a little butt already on a cake this year. Could have done it again. Now, what I really enjoyed too was, as she is putting this together, they turn around to Kyla and Bruno and go, now, obviously a mochi brownie is more squidgy, and it's just like... And what I really loved about that was it then gives you a beautiful cover story if it doesn't quite work. That's the texture.
And the bear butt got into my mind.
Oh, God.
Because she's gone, they might twerk. And you see Anne giggle. And now I want all my bakes to twerk.
You want twerking bakes?
Twerking bakes.
There you go, bakers. There's a challenge for you, twerk bakes.
It does feel like a slightly burlesque themed thing. So we've got twerking now. We're going to go into reveals later.
It's fantastic. So they cut to Lauren and they say to Lauren, have you worked with chocolate before? And she's like, no. Well, I practiced once.
Look, Lauren, I feel you, but it was about kissing. You know, you talk about your first kiss, but really you've been practicing on your pillow before you get to that point, and it's a lot nicer than, like, cotton, is what I'm going to say. Anyway.
So, Lauren.
What did you practice on a pillow?
No.
Come on. What did you practice on?
Didn't. So...
Oh, you're just naturally a good kisser.
I'll take that. Anyway, so Lauren, now she was going with... Now, this is where the naming conventions really took off. So, peanut butter crunch ice cream, black cocoa brownie, miso caramel. Now, what they referred to it was Canine Crunch. Now, if you follow Lauren on social media...
Yeah.
Her dog's named Oreo. They went out of their way to at no point...
Acknowledge
her dog's name.
Well, I was thinking, you know, they could have gone American, or, you know, like North American Delta Cream. The Delta Cream is
the Australian version for the Arnott's factories is a Delta Cream. So, look, we can either refer to them as the North American version of Delta Cream or just call it Oreo, because we're not worried about sponsorship deals or getting sued.
I know. Oh, just another tangent, because we're so not known for that. Big news in Australian biscuit industry. They're not going to continue doing the family assortment, which features a Delta Cream.
But that's also in the assorted creams, though.
It is in the assorted creams, but...
The assorted creams is a superior biscuit selection.
Yeah, it is the superior biscuit selection. But at least, if you're going to get a family assortment, because usually, like, I don't know, there's $1 difference or something. So workplaces usually get your, like, family assortment, which I don't mind, because I don't mind a Scotch finger, being available.
That's a type of biscuit, by the way.
It's a short...
That's a type of biscuit. Kristie going, I don't mind a Scotch finger. It's a type of biscuit.
The Scottish accent is quite lovely. But back to biscuits. So, big deal at the moment, around, making waves,
Our 80% Canadian audience is enjoying this. So, go look it up, guys. So, I'm back at the enjoying a Scotch finger. Anyway, so...
Focus! I kept that... You're the one that brought up fingers in different ways, not me this time.
I'm talking about biscuits.
Next you'll be saying felching.
No, that's your job. Now, Zoya obviously said she's using ruby chocolate and white chocolate, but she doesn't consider real chocolate.
Is a Tim Tam Slam technically a felch? Anyway.
Oh, look up Tim Tam Slam. Don't look up felch. So Zoya was making pistachio almond crunch and gold choc chip cookies with ruby chocolate, saffron, cardamom, frozen yogurt.
That's a lot to fit in.
There are a lot of flavours. And because at one point John goes, what's that smell? And Zoya just goes, cardamom. And you can just see John going, of course it's cardamom. Now, at this point they cut back to John, who, after last week, doubted waving.
Yes.
For the second week in a row, is standing there waving.
He's a convert. He's a convert to the wave. The baking wave. The
bake wave. So, and then they went back to the freezers, and that's where Chi was standing at the freezer, and they were opening up, and Lauren and that were there, and they're like, why are they all still so soft? As we said, the Pavilion's a very hot place, and probably that opening and closing of a normal freezer for the ice cream and for all of that, a blast chiller probably... I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that Cuisinart didn't provide blast chillers. I'm just going to suggest that. That's not a shot at you, Cuisinart. We love you dearly.
Do they do fridges, though? Do they do freezers? Oh, they need a blast chiller.
They need a blast chiller. There you go. That's something on the docket for next time.
Yeah.
New reveal for the Cuisinart, the specific Great Canadian Baking Show.
Yeah.
Blast chiller.
That when you... Okay,
they can brand it.
Okay, so when you chill it, right, when it's at the right chill temperature, it turns from, say, Kyla's face to Bruno's face. Or vice versa. Like, you can have a setting.
No. It starts at Bruno's face because it's the temperature of butter.
Okay, yep.
And then it gradually turns into Kyla's face.
Because she's, cold-hearted? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, because once it moves out of the butter phase, Bruno's not interested anymore.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Once it moves away from being recognisable as butter, Bruno doesn't care.
If butter can't survive in those temperatures, he doesn't want to know.
I can't imagine Bruno wanting to go to, the South Pole or the North Pole, because, once it gets to that point, once it starts freezing, he's not interested anymore. Butter. He just want to chisel his butter.
No, he's like, I just want to be able to whack my knife on it and spread it on my bread.
Let's get to the judging. So, Chi.
Yeah.
They said the biscuits were very cute. There was a bit of a debate between Bruno and Kyla over the word snoot or snout. Then they said that they were soft, but the candied ginger worked really well. So all of that groundwork that she put in there about, there'll be a slightly different texture and blah, 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 paid off beautifully. John, they just said that they balanced really well. Zoya, good flavour, but the ice cream ran everywhere. It was a puddle. As she said, I served cookies and milk.
Look, it's an afternoon snack that Rosemary obviously didn't get as a child. It was molasses and whiskey.
Molasses, whiskey, and bread. It's a really boozy version of a bread and butter pudding.
Yeah.
So, Lauren had great ice cream texture. The miso caramel bound the flavours really well, and they said the ears were well tempered, which is not a phrase you hear all the time.
No.
Rosie's, they said it looked very pop art because you had the toast shape of Rosie's, but with the melted everything around it, so it was like floating toast.
Oh, something I didn't get to say about Lauren's is I thought it looked very like Sooty and Sweep, like
yes, it was
like
very much. They said that unfortunately Rosie's didn't set, which again, she wasn't on her own there. Yeah. The flavour was very good, and Alan's like, I don't care if it freezes or not, I'll drink that. And then Kristie's, they said they had serious weight in the bowl, but Kyle was like, no, these work. These are really good. Yep. The ice cream had a great texture. And that's what they were talking about, that idea. And the rose balanced in there as well. The little bit of rose that she had in there balanced as well.
Nice work.
This brings us to the technical. So the technical is a Zuckertorte.
Yeah.
So it's Viennese, 2 layers of choc sponge, apricot jam inside and then around the outside.
Yeah.
And then a dark chocolate glaze in 2 hours 15. And you also had to write Zucker. And you had to do it freehand, and you had one go.
So with a Saka, is that, I want to know if that is traditional or if that was just an added,
an addition on the end of it with a modern twist.
Yeah, just
branding. Is it branding?
To also up the technical skills, because you're tempering chocolate, you're shaping chocolate, you're making a mirror glaze kind of chocolate, or like a shiny chocolate cover, and this is another way to use chocolate. Like for me, the technical choices this year have been brilliant, and I really like this choice as a technical.
Okay, I've just looked it up.
Yeah?
I've literally just looked it up.
Mm-hmm. What have we got?
It's part of it.
Wow,
so
cool.
The reason why it is part of it is because the guy who invented it, who will surprise you, his name is Franz Zucker.
Made his name everywhere.
Made it for Prince Metternich in Vienna.
I wanted him to know who
basically
made it.
Yeah, it was branding. Show off. Branding before branding were cool. So, now...
I mean, it's a little bit presumptuous, but I get it. Like, back in those days, you couldn't exactly tweet.
No.
And go put it on your Insta and go hashtag, look what I just made for the Crown Prince.
Exactly. You had to write your name on the cake. So, as Kyla said, move fast so you can take it slow. Now, what that meant was get the cake cooked.
Yeah.
Because you have to cool it, because you've then got to put a ton of chocolate things on it that you need to not melt.
Yes.
Now, this is where Anne asked John what it was, to which John's response was a torture device.
Yes. We're continuing our sadistic
rampage through chocolate.
So the shed, it's not quite kinky bakes, but it's verging on it.
Now, what I really enjoyed was everyone looked deeply confused when they were told what it was, and then they were reading the instructions, and everyone's face... There's a great thing going around Instagram. It's a cut of every single one of the bakers' faces when they're reading the technical. Yeah. And it's just confusion city limits. Now, Lauren said she's seen one, but she'd never eaten one and she's never made one. But at least she'd seen it, as opposed to everyone else was like, not a clue. Kyla did say this is the cake that prompted her to go into culinary school.
Did it prompt, or was it just a coincidence?
She said that she was touring around. She had one, and she goes, I went back after that, and I enrolled immediately in culinary school.
Geez, that's
it's a favourite cake.
That is full on, isn't it? Like, that is a catalyst cake. It's like when you find a book that might change your life. Like, this cake changed Kyla's life. Where would Kyla be without a Saka talk? Like, this is sliding doors moment. This is Gwyneth Paltrow.
She's about to say this is Gwyneth Paltrow. This is Aqua.
Yeah.
If only she could turn back time.
No, we don't want her to.
But that's the point.
We're in the dimension where Kyla is our judge, and I am here for it.
Because the point of sliding doors is don't bother.
Yeah.
And I mean watching the movie either. Really, don't bother watching the movie. It's Gwyneth Paltrow at her worst, and that's saying something. Because the woman's made candles scented like herself. Anyway, Rosie just goes, I'm going for a chocolate cake. It's pretty much all I got. Yeah. I'm just going to make a chocolate cake. Well, when in doubt.
Yeah, make a chocolate cake.
Make a chocolate cake. Now, this is the start of what I'm starting to think that, Big Berry obviously has had a very big impact on this series. And we know. And we're on to you, Big Berry. But Big Egg got involved this week. Because 7 eggs for a Zuckertorte. And then, when we get to the showstopper...
There's a lot of egg action.
Egg City Limits. It's the egg board, and we know through The Simpsons that the egg board spend a lot of time trying to pollute people's minds. Homer Simpson warned us. He yelled at the giant egg, I'll get you, egg.
Chris, I'm worried. I'm worried. Like, Big Berry... okay, there is a reason to be paranoid there. We've both experienced the fallout from that.
Yes.
I have to question if there's a conspiracy, because baking does involve eggs, and if you need 7 eggs, there's obviously a reason for it.
Because they're getting a cutback.
Of course they are.
Thank you. You admit it. They're getting a
Not
cutback.
Big Egg, but the fucking farmers. Like, Chris, where does it... I'm worried that we're going to be in a conspiracy. Like, it's probably not anti-vax conspiracy level, but I'm just monitoring the signs and symptoms, okay? And I just wanted you to take a moment.
I mean,
and consider whether...
I'm thoroughly confused by the way that the dairy producers of Canada have really not been all over this show, and they sponsor it. We haven't seen milk all over the place yet, but we've seen eggs.
Look,
last week was honey.
We're going to move on, okay, Chris?
Fine.
Chris, focus. Focus on the apricots. There's apricots. How delightful. Stone fruit. My favourite kind of fruit.
Stone fruit.
And we're almost in stone fruit season in Australia. Well, it's stone fruit season technically, but it's not quite at peak, like in the late summer. Oh, I can't wait.
Now, the cake is also... The other interesting part was they didn't really focus on this, but it's a folded meringue into a batter, which is always tricky.
And where do you get meringues from?
Eggs.
Yes, so we need eggs in this, don't we? Yes, we do, Kristie. Okay, moving on.
I'm starting to get very deeply concerned about your links. So...
Fucking hell!
Now,
I am not getting paid by Big Egg.
That's exactly what someone getting paid by Big Egg would say. Anyway, moving on. Low temperature baking for under an hour. Though they weren't told that, they were just told to bake it. And John goes, let's start with 20 minutes. No, John, you're way off on that. You need a lot longer on that one, mate. And then people were like, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Although I wanted to see a montage of just a bunch of people going, 5 more, 5 more, all the way up to the hour mark. That could have been the whole challenge, just 5 more. And again, there was a lot of love for apricots, though. Like she was talking about, apricot is underrated as a flavour. They were all asked where they stood on the idea of apricot jam, and there was a range of different opinions. Most of them were yes.
Do you think you can do a better apricot chicken these days? Like, I'm thinking...
easily.
Like chicken wings with an apricot kind of... Almost like a jam, but like fucking Szechuan or some fucking heated chili in it, like to really punch it up.
Oh, apricot and chili would be beautiful.
Yeah, let's experiment.
Well, I'm smoking meat tomorrow, so...
Yes, you are.
I'm smoking brisket tomorrow. Anyway, that's my tomorrow job.
That's got nothing to do with apricot.
But what we do need to talk about is the question that, look...
You could do an apricot glaze on it.
We might be a bit worried about a bunch of different things, and like I might be possibly down a conspiracy rabbit hole. But
yeah, you are. There
is something that we've all got to ask a question that was never really answered. What's a Schlag? Now, Lauren later on suggested that the challenges feel like every time you feel like you've got control, it's like this sea monster reaches up and pulls the challenges down. Is the Schlag a sea monster?
Absolutely. That's who's controlling this episode. It's the Schlag, the sadistic Schlag.
So what you're saying is I have the wrong conspiracy theory. It's not Big Egg, it's the Schlag.
Yeah, like people think there's lizard people, but it's actually a Schlag.
Well, later on when they were talking about...
It's like a Doctor Who episode. You go into CBC and up the top, like Bad Wolf?
Yep.
You go up the top,
Schlag.
Aliens.
So, here's the thing though. Like later on when they were giving judging feedback, part of John's judging feedback was the Schlag was under-whipped. Now, were they talking about his bakes, or was this a breakaway moment where they were talking about the Schlag acting below the pavilion, and it was under-whipped and therefore they were all in danger?
So the Schlag's the switch, because it will be sadistic but also wants to be whipped.
But the way to control the Schlag...
Oh, you got to whip it.
...is you whip the Schlag and it goes back under the...
Back to Devo.
Back to Devo. So, but the Schlag is underneath the pavilion.
Yeah.
And if you whip the Schlag, it will stay beneath the pavilion. Okay. But if the Schlag is under-whipped, it will burst through the floor and take you down.
Oh.
We've got it. So underneath the pavilion...
We'll Schlag you away.
...is the Schlag. Mm-hmm. And the Schlag is trying to... got it now. Yeah, okay, it all makes sense. That's a conspiracy I can get behind. So...
Oh no, I feel like I'm becoming...
No, but that's accurate though.
Okay, alright.
We've got enough evidence the Schlag exists.
Okay, yeah, there's enough.
The Schlag, for example, was active in the first ever episode of Bake Off.
Now I feel like I'm being convinced by the conspiracy theories.
No, but think about it.
Yeah.
Pierre,
Yeah.
and it's chocolate again. So Pierre's in the first episode of Bake Off ever.
Yeah.
What happened to Pierre's tart? Pulled the wrapping off it, what happened?
It melted.
Pulled down and melted.
Oh,
the
the
Schlag.
Schlag.
The Schlag was under-whipped.
Oh,
this is
no.
how they learned to whip the Schlag.
Schlag, okay.
All right, we've got it. So Anne walks over at this point and just says hello to Zoya. And poor Zoya looked incredibly doomed to the point where Anne's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And when she said, hey, Zoya. It's like, oh no, I felt that. Now, that's where Alan goes over again to continue his beautiful dialogue with Rosie. And at this point, he sort of looks at her and she's centering herself and she's deep breath in, deep breath out, deep breath in, deep breath out. And she just says, I feel a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Oh no. Oh no. I hope that wasn't the Schlag.
Possibly the Schlag was trying to get through the floor there.
Yeah, just dragging her down.
Now,
setting out its sadistic waves of distress.
Now, if there's one thing you need in a chocolate week inside a very hot pavilion, it's a hot chocolate glaze.
Yeah, because that will make everything better.
Now, this is a genuine question.
Yeah.
So I know that, again, we're going with different techniques.
Yeah.
We're trying all this stuff from around the world. Did maybe Kyla possibly consider the idea that this is a cake that was created in Vienna?
Vienna, okay, yeah.
In a very cold climate where that hot glaze would come on top and set pretty quickly as opposed to a boiling hot pavilion in the middle of Toronto.
Yeah, but Canada is not a tropical country. Like, it's not like...
When it's been Bake Off filmed, it is.
Yeah. Okay, look, it is a mini fucking Indonesia. Like, the pavilion is essentially Bali.
It is.
Sans...
You're not going to find many... You're not going to find...
full moon parties and...
You're not going to find many jacquetorts.
And mushrooms apparently readily available.
There's not many jacquetorts around Bali.
I think you'd be surprised.
I don't think you'd be surprised what you'd find in Bali.
Because, I could imagine that a few people from a certain era might have fled to South America. But surely a few went, you know what? I can get to Indonesia a lot faster.
Southeast Asia was the destination. Anyway.
Yeah. They're like, I want to try this sambal. Anyway.
Now, John turns around and says, with the apricot jam, he goes, it looks like jam. Well, whatever jam looks like. Which confused me, because I've seen jam.
John.
Haven't we seen jam?
John, what part of Newfie are you from? A jamless Newfie?
Jamless Newfie. I don't want to live in a jamless Newfie.
Surely.
I would have thought that Newfoundland was a good place for jams.
Yeah. With all those crazy berries around.
Exactly, all those non-existent berries. Then they all had to pour the chocolate glaze, and they got really awkward because they're pouring the chocolate glaze, and then they've got to put the tempered chocolate arches on it, and they've got to pipe the word sucker, which, John realised after that he had no pourable chocolate.
But geez, his shards were fucking phenomenal. Like, you could have put those in the middle of London and rivaled the shard. Yeah.
But then everyone else, because it's really hot
Except
glaze.
they would have melted because the shard would have reflected light onto the shards, and there'd just be a river of chocolate.
The shard would have ruined the shards.
The Thames would have run brown.
As it so often does. That's why the embankment was invented, to stop the shit. No, literally, that's why embankment exists.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, everybody who left it to the absolute last minute to do all of this found that their chocolate curls all just became part of the glaze.
Yeah, it was sad. And look, I feel that... while we've been talking about, access to, different kinds of, like, equipment and stuff, we've seen people achieve it. So it is doable. So it must have been a hot cake.
Yes.
Got hot cakes.
Hot cake coming through. So the judging.
Yeah.
Rosie, they said she had challenges with the curls. The cake was very well constructed, but the glaze was grainy. John, great tempering. The glaze was good. There was no writing. The Schlag, as we said, was under-whipped, but I think that was just more an instruction to the crew. And a very nice cake. Zoya had consistent glaze. They also said that Schlag needs work, but a great cake. Kristie, they said the glaze was grainy, the bottom was thicker than the top. It was a good flavour, but the cake was dry. So not her greatest challenge there. Chi, they said the glaze was grainy and lacking shine, so it was a bit muddy, and the texture was grainy.
Yeah.
That's two people you'd normally expect to nail a technical struggling with it.
Yeah.
And then Lauren, great writing and glaze. The curls melted a little bit. Good cut, well-balanced glaze, great flavour.
Yeah.
So the order was Chi was last, Kristie was second last. Then Rosie, then John, then Zoya, and then Lauren wins the technical.
Yeah.
And has anybody ever looked as confused at winning a technical as Lauren?
There was this little moment where I saw this kind of like goblin mode face. And I think it was here, or it might have been after the signature, but I'm pretty sure it was here. But then there was confusion, and I'm like, it's adorable. Like, we just need more Lauren-based faces in the world.
She does give a lot of really good facial
face.
reactions. Like,
She's good
she is the Aaron of this series.
Yeah,
in terms of those facial reactions.
And speaking of, like, Aaron, let's bring on some more Drag Race with a few reveals. How's that with, like, a...
Oh, what a link.
Gives good face. Here's the reveal.
And the reveal this time, look, forget, we'll put the showstopper in a second. Now, if you've been on social media, you've seen Anne's hair, which is unbelievable. But that reveal was brilliant.
Oof.
Oh.
That was just like, oh, you think I'm blonde? You think I'm... Bish is long!
And everybody inside, by the way, was far more interested in her hair colour than they were in the bake they were about to do after that. Like, I don't care about the bake anymore. Look at that hair. Look at that hair. That is amazing.
I was waiting for someone to go, well, I'm not going to be like chiseling or melting my chocolate now. I'm just going to be pulling a wig off. Snatch reveal.
Snatch reveals. So they had 3 hours and 15 minutes, a 3D chocolate reveal with a hidden dessert cloaked in a chocolate shell. Can I say I was very happy with the lack of overboard domes. Because if it were, again, Australian MasterChef, it would have been Dome City Limits.
Dome City Limits.
There were a couple,
many domes.
but even the ones that were there were mostly done really well and weren't just a dome.
Look, if you were going to do domes, if you did like a whack-a-mole thing, like you had like little moles underneath.
That
like,
would have been cool.
Yeah.
So, you had Kyla talking about the critical element in this was then clearly going to be tempering.
Yeah.
Because you need the chocolate to shine and glisten, but you also need it to crack when you need it to crack down.
Yeah.
So we go to Chi, and Chi was going with a crackle filled with lime or orange ganache inside this giant chocolate orange display.
Yeah.
And at this point she starts double whisking as well, which was so intense.
The only sadness was that Dawn French didn't pop out, to do a Terry's chocolate orange.
Yeah, Terry's, it's mine. But the double whisking, again, that goes back to Kristie's comment last week about the capitalist overdrive system, which will devour us all.
I do wonder if double whisking is another like it's a possibly something like double fisting in Canada, and it's real, non-Canadians. It's a thing. It's holding 2 drinks.
Yeah, double fisting means 2 drinks.
Does double whisking mean like you're holding 2 jugs of drinks,
or 2 cakes?
2 cakes. You're holding 2 cakes.
Double whisking.
Yes, Why go back for another slice? You can have 2 at once.
Exactly. Then we go to Lauren. Now Lauren starts talking about hers and like the idea of the teapot with chocolate choux religios.
Which look like little nuns.
They do indeed. We've had the religios before as a challenge, especially in Australia. To this day, I know Australian bakers who curse the name of the religios Nerman. Thai tea creme diplomat, gold chocolate ganache.
Yeah.
Now at this point, Lauren reveals that she also collects teapots, and she's got like 40 of them at home.
That's wonderful. And she's into metal. She
and the classic cars, and
I feel like Lauren really is the modern Renaissance woman.
And therefore the outfit was absolutely perfect because it matched.
Point.
Fantastic.
Fucking oath.
Zoya goes with the dark chocolate petal idea, with the entremet inside, with the chocolate anise mousse, with an orange gelée. Now this is where we got the pastis. And they're like, well, what? And Alan goes, well, Bruno needs you to explain it. And Bruno goes, I just drink it. You can explain it. And it's an anise liquor. So we had booze
in a bake, or on a bake.
Also, at this point, we cut over to Kristie, who is working on the layers of kek lapis.
Yes.
So
to pop in her cognac bottle.
Oh yeah. So what I really loved about this, first of all, is that she's baking those individual layers, and so that it's like a rapid bake in out. So you get that sort of stodgy texture as it goes through.
Yeah.
But you get the different coloured layers baked in together as well. And the clandestine cognac idea. So it was kek lapas Sarawak with chocolate mousse and passion fruit gelée up top.
Yum.
And that cognac bottle looked amazing. We'll come to what they did in a minute. But meanwhile, it's everyone's favourite segment. Birdwatch, birdwatch, birdwatch.
Yes, so we had that black-headed yellow bird again. And I have, in my ADHD ways, completely forgotten to look up what it is. I don't know if we've had any feedback.
We haven't yet, but if anyone knows what that bird was, please let us know on the socials.
Or just remind me to Google it and try and find it. Because it's an interesting bird. I'd like to know. For when I'm twitching in Canada.
So that was birdwatch, birdwatch, birdwatch. So we come back to Rosie. Now, Rosie's talking about her choice of chocolates for the bushel she was making, and she said milk chocolate looked far too happy and white chocolate made no sense at all.
Now, I think she meant in reference to the colour of a bushel.
Well, she did, because she used white chocolate in the entremet.
But we took it as white chocolate makes no sense at all. Well, I did. You're a fan of white chocolate.
Yes, but she used...
You and the Milky Bar Kiddo one.
Yeah, but she made apple and white chocolate entremets. Mm-hmm. But the mirror glaze was under a dark chocolate bushel.
Yes.
Then we cut to John, who's just making a chocolate dome, and it was the most straightforward of the bakes. I'm just making a chocolate dome.
Yeah.
Now, white and milk chocolate mousse and a dark chocolate raspberry sponge. So he going with the idea of a full mousse cake rather than just doing like a smaller entremet or smaller ones.
Yeah, they would have been squirrel cakes.
Squirrel cakes, yes, exactly. Mousse and squirrel. And Anne turns around and goes, "Are you confident?" That feels like a baker that's confident, and John's like, "Oh, foolhardy." I mean, either or. Then we enter what I like to refer to as the temper trap.
Da-da-da.
So they start...
Sweet.
So they start trying to temper the bowls and then like trying to... whatever the molds are they're going to come up with. And like Kristie at one point, she does hers and then she goes try to put it in there and goes, "You're messy, but I hope you're something." Which, look, sums up a lot of my life.
Yeah.
You're messy, but I hope you're something.
It's usually what you say to me first thing of a morning.
I do.
Like, "How are you, love?
You're messy,
I hope
but I hope you're something."
Yeah.
Then everyone had to try to get the shells out, which became really tricky. So some of them came straight out of the mould.
Yeah.
Some of them had slight cracks in them. For example, John's came out and had a bit of a crack in it. Rosie decided to channel the bard.
Yes.
Out!
Damn mould.
And then...
Out, damn chalk.
She had 3 or 4 goes at it, and when it finally came out, she turned around to the camera crew and was like, "No one talk around it. Don't disturb this guy." At this point, Lauren and Kristie decided to use a baking technique that we refer to as the Adonis. Mm-hmm. Where they both decided to cover it in gold.
Yep.
So, obviously in honour of Rochelle Adonis,
yep.
who believes that every bake in the world should be covered in gold.
Well, no, she loves every bake, but she's just like, elevate it. Whack it in gold.
Got gold leaf, got gold spray, got gold gold everywhere.
Scrooge McDuck, whack it in your gold coins. roll a Swiss roll in your gold coins.
Now, at this point here, we had 2 things going on at the same time. Zoya dropped the shell, and at the same time, Rosie's entremets weren't working.
Oof.
So they're both sort of going wrong at the same time.
Yeah, and that was good storytelling, I felt.
Yeah, and then you got Rosie sort of put her bushel on top, and there was a slight crack in it, and she goes, "It's cracked on top, so let's go with a bit of creative accounting 101.
Just a few leaves.
And then as they finished up...
Nothing to see here.
And as they finished up, she goes, "I don't drink. It's time to start." So the judging. Mm-hmm. Kristie said, they said, "It looks as though you went down to the cellar and got your favourite bottle of cognac. That feels like a Bruno move." Mm-hmm. Then her reveal was lighting it on fire. And Kyla's like, "Of course."
Yeah.
It looked really good, by the way, when she poured the hot liqueur out. It was beautiful watching.
Loved it.
Yeah. So the contrast...
flambéed.
The contrast between the cake and the mousse was lovely. Mm-hmm. And they said it was an absolutely beautiful dessert.
Yes.
Jean. So John, they said, was great chocolate, but they wanted more creativity in the dome, especially when there was a crack in the middle of what was a base dome.
Yeah.
John poured coffee cream over the top of his one for the reveal. The cake held really well. 3 clear, distinct flavours of chocolate in there, so those 3 layers worked beautifully. Mm-hmm. Chi, they said that they made a hyper-realistic orange, and again, they did.
Yep.
There were a few gaps on the side, so it didn't quite look like a fully operational Death Star, but it was close. Then using the citrus reamer as a chisel, which was a great idea.
Yeah.
I also like hearing the phrase citrus reamer. It's a great one. So
Fits in with the whole kink theme of this. Anyway.
great colour inside. The dome are clean and wonderful orange and chocolate flavours. Rosie's looked really realistic. Bruno said that he loved how Rosie used the flowers, the petals to hide the crack of the leaves. Very sturdy basket.
Yeah, but it was sturdy at the top and not at the bottom. I felt it, the person who wove that basket just got a bit distracted.
Yeah, they did the first bit, and after that, I can't bother anymore. They said it was the whole thing wasn't quite...
Hold on, bushels aren't woven. They're like...
buckets, yeah, they're wood.
They're wooden buckets,
Yeah.
so they're made by a cooper.
Yeah, so it shouldn't have actually opened it. It was fine. The solidness of this bucket should have been great. It should be robust. They did say that the apples, unfortunately, weren't the right shape. Good flavour, but the gelée needed more acidity. And again, if you're doing an apple balance in there, that acidity helps to break through there. Zoya, good idea, but the pour of the pastis over the top did not quite work.
Yeah.
The cake was fantastic and the texture was professional. And then Kylie gave some really good advice and feedback, which was like you needed to put weighted chocolate bits on top of the petals.
Yeah.
So when you do the pour, the weight balances it and they unfold. So, which was really good advice. And then Lauren. So they said that she really embraced the challenge. The star anise caramel pour over the top was stunning. And then when it melted and there was a teapot and like people inside,
Yeah.
it was absolutely stunning.
Super cute.
They said it was fun to eat, creamy, crunchy, great flavour.
Yep.
So then they went out to the judging. The only one they really knew was Star Baker, which was Lauren. And that was a very clear Star Baker, and she really...
Yeah. Way ahead. Like, I called that basically, as soon as I saw that teapot completed, I'm like, well, there's your Star Baker, isn't it?
Now, look, the going home really could have been anybody. Like, it was a really open thing. Look...
The right call was made.
I think Rosie's the right call. I think Rosie's the right call. Here's the thing.
And it came down to the technical.
Well, I think, it came down to the technical because Zoya came second in the technical.
Yeah.
And her cake was good, even though the reveal didn't work. They liked the texture of the cake.
Yeah.
That was sort of the balancing point there. But it was a very open week. And, like, you had people that we've not seen in danger before going into the showstopper.
Yeah.
You know, Kristie and Chi were in a
worried,
bit of trouble. So, look, it was really close, but obviously we lose Rosie.
Oh, come back to the audience. Rosie, join us.
Come join us back on the lounge, come back.
Yeah, we'll give you hugs.
Yeah,
we'll send you some popcorn and a tea.
And she sort of said, she goes,
or maybe some whiskey and molasses.
As she said, she goes, my
obviously your comfort food.
She's like, my daughter would be so proud of me, and her daughter would indeed have been so proud of
her.
her.
And we're all your daughter, Rosie.
We are incredibly proud of you.
We are.
Rosie,
Well,
as is everybody.
Yeah.
So that is Chocolate Week. It's it's an interesting chocolate week. It was a somewhat, conspiracy laden chocolate week. What we have learned, however, which I think is the most important point is there is a monster living under the pavilion.
And we have answered Kristie's question. What the Schlag? That's the Schlag.
That's the Schlag. And with that, we will catch you all next week. Until then, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We'll talk to you all later.
I just want to say hello. It's nice to be recognized, yeah? It's been long.